folks, thanks for tuning back. This is Joel, and I will continue with our discussion on DNAC or STA, right? Um, let's go back to the mind map, right, just to see what we have accomplished till now. What we have done is basically we have obviously talked about everything on the left hand side here. We talked about the installation, the settings, we talked about the tools, right, the device discovery tool. We talked about the design. We did a bit of design for our network, right? We set up some credentials, we set up the IP pools and all of that, and then we moved towards the provision section. And in the provision, I remember we went and pushed certain configuration templates. We also did the LAN automation, right? And we also verified what kind of commands and what kind of CLI is getting pushed from the DNAC to our devices. So now that we have our underlay ready, right? So before we move on to the whole overlay part here, and the virtual networks and all of that, we will park this for now and rather move towards the policy app, right? So in this video, I will mainly be talking about the policy app, right? So we will concentrate on this one, right? So we will do the whole SGT configuration. So we'll talk about the TrustSec, right? We will talk about the ICE and what you have to do on ICE to set up policies and all of that. So if you look at so we'll basically accomplish almost everything which is here, right, as per the mind map. So integration to ICE is already done. I've already talked about it in the previous videos, but we haven't literally done anything with the ICE actually, right? So we will look into that. We will look at how you can create these authorization profiles and policies upon ICE and make them available for our network, for our fabric. We will also see what you have to do on your DNAC, right, with respect to creating all this TrustSec based SGACLs and so on, right? So creating SGACL itself is a multi-step process. Like for example, you have to first create a SGT, then probably either do a static or a dynamic assignment of SGT, right? If you want to do static assignment, you can do it directly on DNAC. You want to do dynamic assignment, then you can do that on ICE. Then you have to create a policy, you have to create a contract and so on. So all of that step we'll see in this particular video. So we'll talk mainly on the policy section today, right? So let's dive directly in. What we will do is so this is my, let me actually show you my blueprint on what I want to do with respect to policies, right? So this is my network, right? I've already shown you my network. It's just a small campus. Think of it as a university campus, right? And this is what I want to accomplish. So we want to create some policies, right? We want to create some SD access policies. So that's the whole idea of IBN, right? Intent-based networking. So the whole idea is that you should be able to define the intent of your business, and DNAC should be able to go and configure it for you. So we are going to define our intent over here, and the intent is going to be something like denying the employee. So we are going to have a lot of SGTs. So we'll have the SGTs such as employees, PCI servers, SGT student, production server. So we'll have different tags, right? I'm not going to talk a lot about the SGT because that's a whole different topic itself. I would recommend you to have a quick Google search about what is SGT, what is TrustSec, right? But in simple terms, if you want me to explain, it's nothing but using tags, right? Instead of using static ACLs, which we have been using in the traditional network for a long time, right? SGTs or scalable group tags kind of help you to use tags, right, for different resources, and you can define your access based on these tags, right? So the main use of this is now you don't really, your access is no longer bound to the IP address of your device, right? So you are free to move around the whole campus, and you are free to be assigned any kind of IP address. What SGT basically brings to the table is that the access is now governed by the tag which is assigned to you, and the tag can be anything, right? So the whole idea of SGT is to kind of like break that whole tight bond which existed between the IP addresses and access list, right? We want to move away from that, and we want to make it as open as possible, so that any user, right, irrespective of whatever IP address he or she has in the network, we will be able to define access rules for them, right? Cool. So these are the access rules which I want. Like for example, I want to deny employees some things. I want to deny the employees the access to some PCI servers and SGT student, probably SGT student resources, right? Similarly, I have denied PCI servers. So PCI servers should not be able to access this. Students should not be able to access this. And then I have something called restrict faculty. So this is not just a pure permit or deny kind of a contract. Rather, it's going to be secure access only contract, which means the faculty should be able to access these guys, but it should be able to access only over HTTPS and SSH. So this is just again just for examples, right? We have just 4 rules over here, but you can define your own policies, right? And then we will also go back to our ICE and see how you can define the authorization profiles and authorization rules to go along with whatever you have done on DNAC, right? So now that the context is set, what do we do first? Let's go to DNAC. So DNAC, let me go to the section. So this is the section which we'll be looking into, right? So it's mainly the policy section. Let's go to the policy section. And one thing to note here is, I think in the new release of this DNAC, what they have done is they have made creating of scalable groups and all of that policy administration. DNAC will be the policy administration point, right? And Cisco IS will just be read only, right? So when you come to this page for the first time, if you go to my previous video and at the end I had come on to this page, and you would see a big banner posted here in red saying that click on this button to kind of like make this transition or migration possible, right? So once you click on that button, what happens is your DNAC becomes the only sole point for creating all this scalable groups and all of that, whereas your ICE just becomes read only. So whatever you configure here will get synced back on ICE. Okay, awesome. So that being said, so all of this is possible only if you have integrated ICE to your DNAC. So I would recommend you to check my previous videos to see how to do that. Now coming to this one, right? So the view was slightly changed in this particular version. Like I've told before, I'm using 1.3.3.1. I think in the earlier versions the view was slightly different. Never mind, the technology is still the same, and the dashboards are almost the functionality is still the same. So for creating the scalable groups, right now I can go and create it over here. So yeah, so I can create it over here, which means you can see some of the scalable groups. In fact, let me increase this to say 50. You can see all the scalable groups are available here, and these are basically synced from your ICE. Now I want there are already a lot of scalable groups which we will reuse, like for example employees, PCI servers, and so on. I believe there are 2 of those which are absent here, so we will create only those, right? So which are the ones we will create? Let's go and create. So we'll create one called as the SGT faculty, more like identifying the laptops and PCs of the faculty in the university, right? So that's fine, and let's go and save. Let's create one more for our SGTs as for our students as well. So let's create one more SGT for our students, right? Then the tag value automatically gets assigned, so you don't have to do anything, right? So that's pretty cool, right? So you can see SGT student is getting synced, I guess. Let's refresh this. Sync is in progress, and yeah, it has synced. What I mean by sync is, now if I go down to my ICE, so this is my ICE. Okay, so on my ICE, what do I see on my ICE? Is that where do I see that? So you go down to your work centers, you go to your trust set, you go to components, and here, see here, the SGT which we just now created has appeared here, right, with the same tag value, right, faculty and student, which is perfect, right? So whatever you create up there on DNAC is getting synced on ICE. Alright, so once we are done with that, what do we do next? The next is we will have to go and create the virtual networks, right? So think of it this way: we have a huge university, right? And there will be different kind of users coming into our university, right? And if you want some kind of a macro segmentation, right, so you would want to have a macro segmentation. Like for example, you would want to have a VRF for the traffic of your campus, and then probably want to have one more VRF for, say, guest users, right? So in our case, what we are going to do is we are going to create two VNs, right, virtual networks, right? In my explanations of SD access, you would have already got the idea about VN, right? VN is nothing but virtual network, and it's a way of isolating the traffic of one segment from the other. And what is the traditional way of deploying that, right? It's just a fancy name for VRF, right? So in our case, we are going to use, like I said, two VNs, right? And let's go and create those VNs. Okay, so for that, you see, you come down to the VN section here. Right now, you will always have default and infra VN. These are created by default. Infra is mainly for your wireless, dedicated for your wireless access points. Maybe if you do something with respect to wireless in future, we might check this out. But for now, you need not worry about the infra VN part. So we will go and create the stuff which we need, right? So let's go and create a VN network, and that's basically the first one is going to be a campus VN. So this is mainly for all the traffic, all the legitimate campus traffic, right? Now once you create this, the next is we will go and basically assign all the various SGTs which are going to be corresponding to the campus traffic, right? So what are the SGTs? Like for example, employees, right? So you just drag and drop. So these are all the available SGTs. So you pull the employees. Let's go and pull the PCI. There's the PCI servers, right? Some kind of payment gateway stuff and all of that. That's also going to be part of the campus network. There might be some production servers, so let's add those, right? Some servers where probably the students are working, or some kind of production server for managing the university. Then you will have your faculty and your students, right? So let's pull the SGT for the faculty and SGT student, which we just now created, right? So that should be fine. So SGT faculty student and 3 of the ones which were already there. So we have 5 SGTs inside this VN, right? Let's save this. Okay, next, so let's create the next VN, which is going to be our guest VN, right? So the guest VN is needed because obviously because it's a campus, you're probably going to have folks dropping into the campus, right? So sorry, I think my bad. New one. Okay, sorry. No, okay, my bad. I was supposed to put it down here. Okay, so guest VN. So guest VN is needed. Like I said, you might have folks dropping by, and you would want to kind of give them access to the network as well, or maybe to some limited resources, right? So anyway, so we want to also keep their traffic separate in the network. So that's why we have the guest VN. Okay, so let the guest VN be there. What we will do now is we will go and probably drag and drop the guest SGT from here, and we'll also check this particular box here, right? So guest VN network, all right? So this pushes in some configuration corresponding to that. So I believe that should be fine. Is there anything else? Okay, so that's okay. So let's save this. All right, so once we're done with the virtual network, so we have now defined the segments in our network. The next is going back to our drawing board and making sure we start with creating these policies, right? So we have created these SGTs, whatever you see here. We just need to create the policies, right? So I've already explained the 3 policies. The first 3 are very similar. They are deny, 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 right? So they are basically using the same contract. If you see here, it's all deny, deny, deny. Whereas the last policy is slightly different, so I'll explain that when we get there, right? So, but let's do the first 3 now. So when we talk about the first 3, where do we go? We will go to policy again, right? So you should probably find it here. Yeah. So the contracts. Let me show you the contracts, right? So by default, I believe there are some contracts here created by default. I'm not sure if these are created by default, or maybe I created them in the past, but I am pretty sure that the default ones are the deny IP and the permit IP ones, right? So these are created by, default, those contracts. All right, and for our first three policies, we just want the deny, contract, right? So it's again very much similar to how you would do it in an ACI. There also, I believe you create some contracts and you have your EPGs and all of that, right? So kind of like very in line with that. I mean, it's understood because this is nothing but APIC-EM, right? So anyway, so coming back here, so how do we create the policy? So these are the contracts. I just wanted to show you the default contracts which appear here. But where do we create the policies? You go down to the policies here, right? So I think they have kind of like added this matrix here as well. I believe this wasn't existing before. In the new version they have added it here, which is pretty cool. Now let's go and create create the policies, right? So let's do source to destination. Okay, a second. All right. So the first policy is going to be deny employees, right? And you can see the source SGT is your employees, and the destination SGT is your PCI servers and SGT student. So let's go and do that. So go back here. The source is your employees. Let me select that. There you go. Let's click on next. The destination is two guys, PCI servers. Let's find PCI. Okay, it's just showing 10 here, so let's increase it to probably 25, and there you go, the PCI is here, and the other one is your SGT student, if I'm not wrong. So let's select that. There you go, selected. Great. Click on next. So you can see the selection over here: employees, PCI servers, student. Contract, you need to create, you need to use a contract here, and in our case we want to deny it, right? So let's select on deny. The difference here seems to be this is deny IP SGSEL, this is contract with access action as deny IP. Okay, that's fine. So we'll use the deny IP, and let's review it. Looks everything good. So let's click on next. So we have created this, right? Very much in line with what we wanted. Let's save this. Right? So we have denied the employees, and you can see the red lines, the red checks here, right? So that's pretty cool. Let's go on creating more, right? So let's create the next one, which we want to do is okay, we'll have to basically go and create here. So the next is also source to destination, right? It's going to be what? Let's go back and check. Sorry, yeah. So let's check. The next one is deny PCI servers. So the PCI servers. Okay, so it's going to be you'll have to find the PCI in the source. Click next, and in the destination I'll have to have my employees. We'll have to have production servers. Where is production servers? Okay. I believe it's somewhere here. There you go. The production service is there, and the other one is SGT student as well. So we want to deny it for all these three guys. So looks good. So PCI servers, you have your employees, production servers, and SGT. So that's good. Let's click next. We are gonna deny again. Click next, and we are going to save this. Does it look good? I think it looks good. Yeah. The last one in the deny segment, you can see as and when we do it, by default everything is permit. So wherever you see red, it means it's a deny. Last one, starting from it's going to be a deny student. So obviously our source is going to be SGT student. Here, let's select that. Let's click on next, and we are going to deny from student towards the employees. Here you go, right? And also we want to deny the PCI servers, because we don't want the students to mess up with the payment gateway of the university, so we want to deny that. So let's do that. Again, deny, and click next, review it, save it. All right, So that's pretty cool, right? You can see here, let me scroll down, or maybe let me go to the full screen. I can see all the various denies which I have put, and all of them are highlighted in red. Now next, so if you see my if you see this particular set of policies, the last one which I want to do is restrict faculty, right? Now restrict faculty is not a policy, or I mean, I want to do restrict faculty obviously, but you see the contract is called as secure access only, and this is a custom contract, right? Because you see the default contracts are either permit or deny. This seems to be a custom contract, so I'll have to create it. So let me just copy this, as we'll be using it. So for creating this, you basically go down to access contracts again. So these are the existing contracts. I'm gonna add a new contract. Yeah, there you go. Let's give in the name, skip the description, the contract content, right? What kind of an action do you want? I want some permit. When do you want a permit? I want a permit SSH. So let's see if I can search for SSH. Yeah, there you go. TCP port is obviously 22. Can I select it? Probably not. Yeah, I think SSH by default it's graying the transport protocol. I can't put, oh, okay, it's selected already, so that's fine. So that's pretty cool. And do I want to do more? Let's add one more. Yeah, so the other one is my permit for HTTPS. So let's see if that works. HTTPS, yep. And the port 443, right, or 443 UDP TCP 443, got selected. And that's pretty cool. What else? The implicit I want it to deny, right? Obviously if these two things don't match, then I want it to deny. So I think we are good here. Do we want anything else? Nope, I think that's good. So let's save this. So we have created a new contract now. It's called, and its sync has not started. It's trying to sync. Let's wait for the sync to finish. Yeah, it's completely synced now, which means we can go and create our final policy, which is based on this, right? So let's go back to our policies. Let's create a new policy again from source to destination. The source is basically going to be SGT faculty. Let's select that. Okay, let's scroll down. That's weird. This is kind of blocked me out here. Okay, give me a second. All right, so it had vanished, the below bar. I just had to refresh the dashboard again. Anyway, so let's go back and select the source again, which is going to be our SGT faculty, right? So let's change this back to 50. It's SGT faculty. Let's click on next. The destination is going to be what? It's going to be employees, right? Let's select it to 50 back again. So employees, maybe the PCI servers, right? We don't want the faculty accessing some of these resources, on HTTP or Telnet and stuff. So we want them to access only on SSH and HTTPS. So PCI servers, then production servers. Okay. SGT faculty as well, like if they want to communicate among themselves, and the other one is your SGT student, right? So all of this 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 5, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, that's good. So let's click on next. Now when you select the contract, we were selecting deny IP earlier. This time we'll go and select something like a secure access only, right? So that's good. Let's click on next, and we can just review this, save it. Right? So that looks good. And yeah, so the other thing which I wanted to show you is that the GBAC configuration. So this one, this is basically what I was talking earlier, right? So if you enable this, we are basically telling the group-based access control, right? We are basically telling that DNAC will be the master, right, wherein we will do all the SGT-based configurations and TrustSec configurations, right? And ICE will only be read-only, right? But you also have another option where you can make like DNAC the read-only, whereas the ICE is going to be the place where you will actually configure, right? So you can select either of this, right? Cool. So that being said, so we have done all of this. I believe everything would have synced back into ICE. So we could probably check it out. So let's check that on work centers. If I go to TrustSec policy, okay, there you go. Isn't this fun? We can see everything which we did on DNAC is visible here, right? So all the access control policies which we defined over there, the permit, deny, the secure access only, all of that is visible down, right? We can also probably double click. Let's see if you can do the condensed view. Yeah, okay, it's already in the condensed view. So maybe if I can select one of right, so let's double click here. I think it should open up. Yeah, there you go. You can see the faculty, or maybe I have not input in the description, so that's fine, right? But you can see all the configuration from DNAC has been pushed down here, right? We can also see the other stuff, like for example, if I go to work center, TrustSec components, we could probably see the SGACLs as well, right? See, this is the SGACLs, right? So let me just pull this a bit. Can I pull this a bit? Probably not. Okay, so you can see the secure access only, which we defined, right? So the permit, TCP, the SSH, and we have permitted the HTTPS, right? So you can see that policy over here as well. I mean that particular contract has been translated to a SGACL. Okay, so that being said, let's move on to the next stage of our configuration, which we will actually be doing mainly on our ICE. What is it? We will actually come and do the authorization profile and the authorization rules configuration on ICE. All right, so the configuration on ICE. So let's do this step by step, right? So anytime you do a configuration on ICE, what is the first step you would do? We will go and create our identity groups, because that is the place where our users are going to be defined, right? So let's go to administration. Let's go to, I believe, groups, right? There you go. So we have the user identity groups here. There are few groups already created by default. I think that's fine. We will go and create 2 of those. So we'll go and create let's add, and let's basically create a faculty group, right? Because we are talking about a campus, we are talking about a university. We want to create faculty so that we can put in probably all the teachers into this particular group, right? Let's submit. The other one is going to be our student, right? So we are going to keep a separate group for the student, because then we can easily have our authorization profiles divided as well accordingly. Cool. So that being said, so we have done 2 separate identity groups. Now just having identity groups is not sufficient, so we will have to go one step back and create the identities, right? It's always a reverse step. You first create the group, then you go and create your identities for those groups, right? So give me 1 second. All right, so now that we have done the identities, we have done the identity groups. For identities, I have a list of identities here. We are basically going to use those, right? So which is the list? We have it here. Yeah, so we are going to have, I guess, 6 identities. Out of that, 2 are going to be teachers, 2 are going to be students, and 2 of them are going to be employees, maybe like an admin employee in a university, right? So let's do that. So let's go about creating these. So we're going to add, right? Start with the first one, right? So there you go. We're going to add the name, which is Ethan, and the login password is going to be what? It's going to be the one which we have been using for quite some time, so I'm going to use that. The user group is very important, right? So we're going to select employee over here, and that's it. I mean, we're going to hit the submit. So I'm going to pause the video and do the rest of the stuff, because I don't want to bore you by doing all the 6 myself. All right, so I think we are good here. I've just replicated whatever I showed you earlier, right? So I've created 2 users for employees, which is Emily and Ethan. Then we have Fiona and Fred for faculty, and we have Sam and Stacy for the student, right? So that's pretty straightforward, and all of them should be in the enabled state. We might also use map, right? So in future, so what I'll do is I'll go back to the groups, identity groups, and this time under endpoint identity groups, I would want to create a new group, right? I really don't have the MAC address yet because I don't have the VM set up to test all of this. So for now, I'm just going to create an endpoint group. Let's see if there is already something like that. I don't want to create something which is already existing. So, okay, so the PCI servers, I don't see any endpoint. So let's create a group, and this group is going to be for my PCI servers, right? So there you go. I'm just going to create the group for now without without actually defining the MAC address and all of that, because the MAC address in the VMs is going to be dynamic, right? So I'll just add the MAC address later. So this looks good. So we are done with all the identity path. Now we are good to start with the authorization profiles, right? From our design. The next part is the authorization profile. So where do we do that? We go down to the policy, and remember we have something called as policy results over here. So let's come here, and under this you will find authorization. Go to authorization profiles. There you go. There are some default stuff here, but don't worry, we'll be basically creating everything new. So let's create on plus. Just to give you an idea, what happens is when the user is authenticated, authorization profile will kick in, right? And in this case, we can do a lot of things with authorization profile, like provide DACL, assign some SGT and all of that. But for now, what we are doing is mainly we are basically going to assign a VLAN, right? So on our edge devices, once we provision our fabric, which we haven't done yet, once we do the whole Lisp, VXLAN and all of that, right, we are basically going to have VNs, right? We are going to have those VNs, VNIs and all of that, which we have discussed in the past in the VXLAN video, right? So we are going to have those VLANs mapped to the VNIs and all of that. But as of now, we have not done it, but I already know how the VLANs would look like. So I'm just going to use that information and show you that later, right? But let me proceed with this and show you what I actually mean by this, right? So when I talk about authorization profile, what I mean is I want to create 3 authorization profiles here, which means every time a user logs into the network, they are going to be put in one of these 3, right? It's either going to be campus production network, either going to be campus infra, right? Or it's going to be the guest network, right? So don't confuse this with VNs. VNs are basically the 2 VNs which we created earlier. I believe it's not listed here, but we created, remember, the campus VN and we created the guest VN, right? But these are nothing but going to be the VLANs on the edge devices, right, which will then map up to the specific L3 VNs, right? But don't worry about that. For now, just think of these as VLANs, right, which will be provisioned on our edge devices. And what are the 3 VLANs? It's going to be campus prod. These are the names of the VLANs which will be actually provisioned. So it's going to be generally the pool IP address, right? Remember the pools which we defined in DNAC. So it will use the pool, it will put a dash and it will take the VN name, right, for that particular VN. So this is how it is going to automatically assign, right, the VLAN names. So I'm going to use this because I know for a fact that this is how it works. Even though I have not yet provisioned the VNs, right? Don't think that I'm just cooking this up. This I will obviously show you this when we get to the fabric provision, and I'll do a show VLAN brief and show you that these are the actual VLANs which got provisioned on the edge devices. All right, back here. So let's go and create the first profile, which is a campus production network. And so this doesn't have any significance inside the fabric, right? This is just for my eyes to understand, right? This is just a profile which will then be used in my authorization policy, right? So don't give much importance to the name, right? Don't confuse this with a VN, don't confuse this with VLAN and stuff. This is just an authorization profile, right? The VLAN is where you need to be careful. So you go and select the VLAN, and here either I can put an ID, VLAN ID, or I can put a VLAN name. So I'm going to go with the VLAN name, and I know because for a fact that this is the VLAN name which will be assigned, right? I really don't know what ID will be assigned, so I'm not going to take the gamble over there. What else? So I have that and I should be happy. Let's scroll down, let's hit the submit. Let's do the same thing for the next guy, which is what? The campus infra profile, right? So for this profile as well, save this. Let's go to the VLAN. Where is VLAN? Okay, here. And for a fact, I know that this is it's gonna get the 12 subnet, right? 192.12.2.12.0, and this is how the VLAN ID would look like. So I'm happy to put that up there, and let's go and hit the submit again. So we're done with the two, and the last one is my guest profile, right? So the guest profile obviously is also gonna be here. Let's go down to the VLAN. Where is VLAN? Over here. And the same saga continues. You're gonna put the VLAN name here. Hope everything looks good. Let's hit the submit button and we should be pretty good, right? So we have created these three guys: the campus infra, campus prod, and the guest net. Awesome. Next, now comes the let's go back to results, right? What is there? What else is there here? So we did the authorization profiles, right? The next is actually the authorization policies, right? So give me a second. All right, so like I was saying, let's go back to creating the last part of this section, which is the authorization policies, right? So I believe we go down to the policy, right? Policy sets. Click on policy set. What we have here, so we have some default policy, right? I can see here. What I'll do is, let me just click on this arrow mark to extend on what is the default policy consisting of. We are on the policy page, and let's go down to the authorization policy. There are some default policies, but that's fine. Let's go and create the stuff which we want. So let's click on the add button here, and the one which we want to create is a wired.1x employee, if I'm not wrong. So let's go and edit this part and add it here. Yeah, so there you go, wired.1x employee, right? Under the conditions, let's go and add this. Here we will have to select the identity group name. And what is the identity group for employees? It's going to be, I believe it's a user identity group somewhere here at the bottom. Yeah, there you go. So we're going to select the user identity group employee. We are basically telling all the users falling under this particular group, and let's go to wired.1x. So let's go and drag and drop this on here, right? Yeah, there you go, that worked. So we are basically saying either this, not either, sorry, this and this. When both of these conditions satisfy, let's use this. So there you go, that appeared down here, and the profile is going to be obviously campus infra for this. Okay, so we have created those profiles right earlier. So we are basically telling users, let me just go back and check what were those. Maybe we can check it here as well. So this is your campus infra, right? So this is the profile name. So when the users are coming in from this particular VLAN, right? So we are basically going to use that, right? So that's why we have the authorization profile. So always you create your authorization profile and then go and create your authorization policy so that you can link it back. The security groups is going to be your employees, I believe. Let's see where you have that. Don't we have it? Weird. Okay, oh, here. Okay, I found it. So employee, right? That's good. So we are done with one of the authorization policies. So I can now go and like save this peacefully, right? So let me create one more, and then I'm gonna like pause and create the rest, because I don't want to bore you guys with this. So let's do the next one. What's the next one? Let me do one more on the video. So let's do wired.1x student, right? So let's do that. Let me just yeah, let's just copy that. Let's go back to here. Let's go down here, and it's gonna hit the add button. Let's get rid of this. Let's go to conditions. Let's go down to attribute, select this group name, and from here we are going to select what? This is for wired.1x student, so we are going to select the user belonging to student. So you should find something you should have like a identity group belonging to student. Where is it? Yeah, over here. And then we're gonna drop down the wire.1x here. Okay, not on that. I think we have to drop it here. Okay, so that's it, and we're gonna use that. We're gonna select obviously for this the campus production, right? That's what defined in our policy, and we will go and select student SG, or what is the security group tag here. Let's go back and check. So we want the SGT student to be assigned for this, right? So let's go back and do that. Student, there you go, done. So now I can peacefully go and save this, right? So let me pause the video now and do the rest of the policies, because I've shown you a couple of them. I don't want the video to be too long, so I'm going to pause it and do the rest of them. All right, guys, I have completed all the configurations for all the I believe we have like 5 authorization policies, and you can see here, right? You can probably take a quick snapshot as well if needed, right? But this is what it is. We have a couple of MAB authorization policies and the 3.1x, right? And correspondingly, you can see I've created for guest. So I've used only the difference here is probably I've used the endpoint identity group, which is guest endpoints. Even on this one, I've used endpoint identity group, which is the PCI servers, because these both are MAB, right? So you need MAC addresses. You can't use user identity, which is mainly for your username passwords. So these 3 you can use for .1x, whereas these 2, whenever you have MAB, right, you gotta use the endpoint identity group. So there you go, that's good. And here as well, this is guest, campus production, another campus prod, and campus infra. So these are the SGTs, right? Guest, PCI servers. Remember, we created SGT faculty at the start of the video, and then we have SGT student also created at the start of the video, and we have the campus, the employees over here, right? So that is it. That's mainly what I wanted to do in this particular video, right? So hope you guys liked it. Just to recap, what we have done is we have reached here, right? We did all of this. We have finished the policy, right? We did a bit of trusted configuration, right? We talked about how to create the contract, how to create the policy, how to create the SGT, right? We also created the authorization policies and all of that needed for my eyes, right? So the whole policy section is completed, right? So thanks for watching, guys, and please do come back for more videos on DNAC, right? Thanks a lot and stay safe.